Hey friends, welcome back to science, all right? I'm really excited for us to be moving on. I know we've done a lot with classification, but we're going to kind of extend our understanding of classification right on over into heredity. While you may not think that there's a lot of connections, I know that last week I had you guys kind of look at those connections a little closely as we move into heredity. So for this lesson, there are a couple things that you're going to need. You're going to need a pen or pencil or whatever writing utensil you have at the house. I want you to get a piece of notebook paper or guided notes. I'm posting the guided notes so you can print those out if you have the ability to. But if you can't print the guided notes, that's okay. Just go ahead and follow along on your paper. It's really not that serious. It's not going to make a difference because I will stop and tell you where to take notes at and where not to take notes at. So let's move forward. So I want you guys to think about yourself. How would you describe yourself? What do you look like? Think about your personality. How do you act? What are your likes and what are your dislikes? Now I want you to take a second and draw a box that will represent a mirror. And in that mirror, I want you to fill in the adjectives that describe your appearance and personality. Now I want you to pause the video right here, maybe about 1 or 2 minutes, and go ahead and jot that down. Okay, welcome back. So, what are some of the things that you wrote down? Did you talk about your hair color, your eye color? Did you talk about the way that you laugh? Did you talk about your eyebrows? Did you talk about what a great basketball player you were, a great dancer you were? Did you talk about your personality and where you get that interesting sense of humor from? Did you guys talk about how smart you are? Those are all different types of personality traits that we use to describe ourselves generally. Some of these traits that we have are passed down by our family members, from our parents. They're passed down from generation to generation. There are things that we see in our family that happened to us way back when. And others you learn on your own. There are things that you pick up over time. So let's talk a little bit about traits. Every living thing has traits. Every living organism has traits that make it unique. Now, this is something you're going to write down. This is a good vocabulary word to write down. A trait is a characteristic of a living thing. So if you have to pause and write it down right now, I suggest you do that. Go ahead and click pause if you need to. Pause it so you can write it down. A trait is a characteristic of a living thing. It's what we use to describe it. So here are a couple different types of traits. You see this plant, we learned a lot about plants last unit. You see this plant? Definitely has some traits. Look at the shape of its leaf. What do you notice? That's right. I don't know if you answered, but I'm going to go ahead and say that's right. All right, that's right. There are all different types of shapes in our world. And when we're classifying, we're looking at those kinds of traits to help us to classify. Do you guys see the connection? Oh, I know you do. We look at the flower. Look at the color of this flower. Look how beautiful this flower is. What traits do you notice about this particular flower? Not just the color, but maybe the shape of the petals on the actual flower, whether and how much it opens or closes. When you look at this, look at the seeds. What kind of seeds are in this particular plant? What kind of plant is this? I know you guys know because you guys take them up on the field all the time and blow them everywhere. So you definitely should know about it. What kind of seeds do they have? What size seeds do they have? All of these are considered types of traits, or rather characteristics that help us to describe the plant. We also have things like eye color, the texture of our hair, the outer covering of our bodies, and even with not just us as living organisms, but all other living organisms. Some traits are inherited. Uh-oh, this is the note-taking time. So you guys may want to stop and pause and take some notes. Inherited traits are physical characteristics that are passed from parents to their babies, or rather their offspring. The passing of traits is called heredity. The passing of traits is called heredity. Okay, so again, these are notes that you should be taking. So if you need to pause at any moment and go ahead and take those notes, I suggest you do that. So let's go ahead and determine some of your inherited traits. Do you have an attached or detached earlobe? So I want you to go ahead and feel your ear. And I want you to look at the examples that are right there on your screen, and I want you to tell me whether or not your earlobe is attached or detached. Do you have naturally curly or straight hair? Give me a description of it. Can you roll your tongue just like that? I'm doing it right now. I totally can do it, but some people cannot do it. Do you have dimples? I have a little dimple. Are you right-handed or are you left-handed? Do you have freckles? Do you have a widow's peak, which is that little part, like a little Eddie Munster? I don't even know if you guys are old enough to know who Eddie Munster is, but do you have a widow's peak? Look at that picture. Right there on her forehead, does your hairline come into a little point like that on your hair, on your forehead? Do you have a hitchhiker's thumb when you put your thumb up? And so I want you guys to kind of go through all of these. Take a second, put me on pause if that's fine. And I want you to go through each one and test it out. I want you to look at your ear. I want you to look at your hair. I want you to try the tongue thing. I want you to see if you got some of those cute little dimples in your face. I want you to tell me whether you're left-handed or right-handed. And I want you to draw a little chart that's going to have 8 of these squares. You can draw it however you want to. That's really up to you on your notes. And I want you to put whether or not you have each of these. So you'll pause, take a moment, and write those down. All right, inherited behaviors. Before we were talking about inherited traits, but now we're moving on to inherited behavior. Now, a trait is something that's just on your body. It's typically very physical, having to do with your appearance. But behavior is something that you do. A behavior is a way a living thing or organism, as we like to say as real scientists, acts or responds to their environment. Behaviors that are inherited and do not need to be learned or practiced are called instincts. And I'm going to repeat that again, and this is something you definitely should take notes on. Behaviors that are inherited, that means passed down from somebody in your family, behaviors that are inherited and do not need to be learned or practiced are called instincts. Now, when you're writing your notes, I want you to really put a good underline or a box or color or shade. Do not need to be learned or practiced are called instincts. So here are a couple examples of instincts. A dog drools when it sees food. That's an instinct. Okay, that's something that dog cannot help. They cannot learn it. It is something they can't help. It just happens naturally. It's an instinct. A spider spins a web. Again, a wonderful example of an instinct. A bird builds a nest. Instinct. They do it. No one has to tell them how to do that. They just know how to do it. Other birds don't teach them. They instinctively know how to do that. Bears hibernate in the winter. Hibernation is another form of instinct. You might want to be writing some of these down. If you need to go back, that's fine. So I want you to think about it. What are some other instincts that animals exhibit? You can go ahead and write some of those down real quick and put me on pause. Maybe write 1 or 2 down. Human instincts are often known as reflexes. So in animals, they call them instincts. In us, they might call them reflexes. So what kind of reflexes does a baby have? Think about it. What are some things that babies do that we don't have to tell them to do? Things we don't have to teach a baby to do. Write some of those things down. Sorry. You might have thought, oh, we don't have to teach a baby to blink. We don't have to teach a baby to sleep. We don't have to teach a baby to breathe. Most babies, we don't have to teach to breathe, right? We don't have to teach them to yawn or stretch out, okay? So just think about those things we don't have to teach baby, these reflexes that they do naturally. So this is basically the end of today's mini lesson on heredity. And so what I want you guys to do as part of your assignment after listening to this little video, what I want you to do is go onto the link. It's on your agenda. Go to the link and watch this short video on heredity, okay? The video is only like 4 minutes, so go ahead and watch the video. And then what I want you to do is click on the link on your agenda and it'll take you to a Padlet. Okay, and I want you guys to answer the questions on the Padlet. Now they're going to ask you a little bit about what we talked about here today, and what the video talks about, okay? So I'll see you guys tomorrow with part 2 of our lesson on heredity. Have a great day, and I miss seeing y'all faces. All right. Have a good one. Bye.